welcome everybody to the 2024 Houseplant Olympic Games. After years of intensive growing, dramatic repots, lost leaves and battles with pests, it all comes down to today. So who's going to take home the gold? We're here today with correspondent Phil, who's going to be bringing us live updates from the competition ground, and of course our chief overseer and sniffer in command. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And I'm excited to announce that the categories for today's 2024 Houseplant Olympic Games will be Fastest Grower, Fuzziest Foliage, Most Adaptable Grower, Strongest Plant, Quickest to Root, Best Abseiler, and finally, most striking venation. So place your bets down in the comments below and I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So the first category my plants are fighting for the title of today is the fastest grower. And this was an extremely tough category to judge. There are a lot of plants that could have made the cut here, but it's come down to the final three. So should we take a look at who the nominees are? Over to you, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. I really do believe this is going to be an incredibly tight competition and it could genuinely be anyone's game right now. But firstly, starting off going for gold, we've got the Epipremnum aureum, which is native to French Polynesia. As you can see, this one's trailing down and popping out new leaves like mad. There's sections of it left, right and centre around here because it's had to be chopped back so many times. Otherwise, I truly believe it would be reaching the floor by now. You can also see a section of it climbing the blinking beam over there. It grows like a weed. You can see a small section of growth there has been lost due to an overwatering issue, but they overcame that and bounced back fairly quickly, which I think shows great resilience. And the audience clearly agree. And the next in line for gold is this beauty here, the Begonia hirtella. And this one's actually a fairly late entry into the competition, having only begun its journey about 3 months ago, which I personally think says a lot about this plant and just how fast it is to grow. It's growing here, precariously balanced on this propagation box, lapping up light from this south-facing window, which might seem unusual for a begonia, as typically they require more indirect or even medium lighting levels. But the Begonia hirtella's just responded brilliantly. You can even notice some flowers there. And the last competitor in this category is the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, which is native to southern Thailand. And I think we can all see how wild this one's growing. It's scaling the blinking walls for crying out loud. This one was actually chopped back on a pretty major scale about 6 months ago and has regrown incredibly quickly. Just last month even, it didn't reach the top of the wall and now it's growing around the ceiling. It's just mad.
So those are the nominees, and after much deliberation, I can now reveal that the bronze medal goes to the Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. And then I'd like to award silver to the Epipremnum aureum. Which means the gold medal goes to this one, the Begonia hirtella. And oh my goodness, I've said it before, but this has got to be one of, if not the fastest plants I've ever owned. I got this one as a one leaf cutting about 3.5 months ago. And I just want to stress that, and I know I say this a lot, but I just want to stress one leaf cutting. Like this one is giving me multiple new leaves, what feels like every single day at the moment. So this was honestly not that difficult in the end. I feel like this one was head and shoulders above the rest. But it's quite an unusual begonia, besides the fact that it looks quite, I don't know, quite green and plain. It's definitely not one that you see about very often here in the UK. So I feel really, really lucky to own it. It's one that's been an absolute joy to grow so far. And I've not always been the biggest begonia person, but I feel like this one and perhaps another one that you're going to see in the games today have been really responsible for kind of sparking my interest and making me want to explore the genus a little bit more. It's also been incredibly easy to care for. It's one that's very good at telling you when it needs a drink. Like if you have a look at it now, you can tell it's just a little bit droopy towards the bottom, and that is it telling me that it needs some water. So besides that, I don't actually monitor this plant that much at all. So yeah, I would say it would probably make a great beginner one. I am actually tempted to take some more cuttings of it at some point soon and propagate them and get a massive full plant going. Because if it can reach this level in just 3 months, can you imagine if I had like a year? Can you imagine how big I could grow this? So yeah, stay tuned. But the next category in today's games is the fuzziest foliage, and I just want to give a quick honourable mention to the Begonia Oldymore, which is a new addition to my collection that just narrowly missed the cut. I don't know if you can see, but it is super, super, super fuzzy. But should we have a look at who the nominees in this category are? Back to you, Phil.
Thanks. Well, first in the running is this beautiful Alocasia Jacqueline. And you say fuzzy, Claire. I would actually describe this one as more bristly. But the Alocasia Jacqueline's native to Indonesia, and my oh my, what a beauty she is. As you can see, this one's growing happily towards a south-facing window. Its growth is definitely leaning towards the light, so I'd say it could actually do with a stake for support, but that's an issue for another day. This is a pretty hardy alocasia, to be honest. It's much more adaptable than some of the others we'll see in the games today, and can even cope well with lower drops in humidity from time to time. Obviously that's not ideal, but she's a tough cookie compared to the others in her family, that's for sure. And another little fuzzy one hoping to make it to gold is this unusual specimen, the monkey tail cactus, primarily native to Peru. As you can see here, it's living its best life up on a shelf in a south-facing window and is an incredibly low-maintenance plant. This is one that's also capable of producing amazing pink flowers, which hasn't happened yet, but my goodness, can you imagine if it did? That's one way to win gold for sure. And the final fuzzy entry in this category is the Hoya globulosa Welsh Mountain Zoo. The Hoya globulosa is native to China and a cultivar of villosa, which I do believe has now been reclassified as Welsh Mountain Zoo. This one's living its best life in the IKEA Millsbo cabinet, right underneath these grow lights here. It's been chopped back several times and propagated, so what you're seeing here is actually several sections of plant. The wonderful thing about this one is that it's not only got gorgeously fuzzy leaves, both fronts and backs I might add, but it's also got very fuzzy stems. It's a very unusual one, and I think it really deserves its place in this competition.
So, having looked at all of the competitors in that category, I can announce that the winner of the bronze medal is the Alocasia Jacqueline. And then the silver medal goes to the Hoya globulosa Welsh Mountain Zoo, which means the monkey tail cactus has taken home the gold medal. And oh my goodness, isn't this one just gorgeous? The monkey tail cactus was a plant that I had on my wish list for years and years and years and years, and I finally got one about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and sadly that's not the one that you see here. That one, I overwatered it, and that is the one thing with this plant. It is ridiculously easy to overwater, so you just need to make sure you're very, very carefully monitoring the soil. Also, growing your plants in terracotta, if they're ones that are susceptible to overwatering, is a really good way to just help regulate the watering a little bit, because terracotta is a porous material. It just helps to absorb a little bit of the excess water. But I actually got these as like off-cut cuttings, like bits that had broken off. You can see at the top there, they're not the original sections. I got them quite cheaply when I went to the RHS festival earlier this year in Malvern. And they were teeny at the time, and I am amazed by just how quickly they've grown in, again, I think it's only been a couple of months. So yeah, this one has just blown my mind. And if you look at the top here as well, you can see, oh, can you see? It's starting to put out some more growth there, because I was a little bit worried that the plant looked sparse, and I was like, I'd love it to go all the way around, but it kind of looks like it's filling out itself. So yeah, that is very exciting, and it's a plant that I feel very happy to own. And now next up is the category of the most adaptable grower. And again, there's lots of plants that could have made it onto this list, but what I was really looking for here is ones that can adapt to a wide variety of conditions. So for example, different lighting conditions, different humidity, temperature, watering, you name it. So let's have a look at who's in the running.
Well, the first will surely come as no surprise to anyone. I'm over here in Snake Plant Corner, and to be honest, any of these bad boys could have been nominated. But the one that we're focusing on today is the Sansevieria Black Coral, which is native to Ghana. Although technically the Sansevieria has now been reclassified as Dracaena, I think us older folk can agree that Sansevieria just feels better to say. It's a change I personally struggle to get my head around. But the black coral, wow, where do we even begin? It grows fastest in bright light and it can take direct sunlight, but again, just look at its positioning here. It will also grow well in very low light. It can also survive in very low humidity levels, but equally is unlikely to cause you drama if you place it in a high humidity tropical environment. It's also ridiculously drought tolerant and can go very long periods of time without a drink. I haven't seen this one take a sip in weeks. And another contender here is the ZZ plant, full name Zamioculcas zamiifolia, and this one's native to the grasslands of Kenya. This plant's almost on par with the snake plant in many ways, to be honest. It can take very high light, very low light, and won't need watering for ages. It can also go years without being repotted and continue to grow healthily and without giving you grief. Similarly with humidity, this one will be happy growing in both low and high humidity levels, so is never one you need to worry about. It's quite slow to grow, mind, but for an easy and adaptable plant, who really cares about that? And the final nominee for most adaptable grower is this plant, the Aglaonema cutlass, which is native to Papua New Guinea. Don't let its beauty fool you, this Aglaonema is ridiculously hardy and hasn't failed to surprise in just how well it can adapt. It's currently being grown in a fairly low light spot and continues to pop out beautiful growth. It's also not fussy when it comes to humidity and can be allowed to really dry out between waterings. It's become a firm favourite here, and with the audience too.
So this was a really tough call to make, but I can now reveal after much consideration that the plant taking bronze today is the Aglaonema cutlass. And then the silver medal goes to the ZZ plant. Which means taking the gold here today is the one and only Sansevieria black coral. And oh my goodness, you guys know how much I love a snake plant. I think they are just incredibly adaptable in every aspect. I think they can be really amazing at just adding a little pop of greenery to corners that otherwise you might not be able to put a plant. They're just really interesting to look at as well. I think the texture of them, it's almost grass-like, but they're just so, I don't know, I love texture in plants so much, and when I see kind of scattered textures amongst each other, I don't know, I'm not the biggest one for colour, but texture I'm huge on. So yeah, this one ticks so many boxes for me, and I've got so many different types of snake plants in my collection as well. As I say, lots of them could have been on this list. But the black coral is currently my biggest and grandest and most beautiful snake plant. I really adore this one. And this is actually one of the plants that every time I look at, I feel pretty good about myself, because if you watch my channel, you will know that I have learnt to drive a little bit later in life, and I've always been, I've been a little bit nervous about it, and I decided that to overcome my fear of getting in the car, I was going to drive myself to lots of garden centres. And this is one of the first garden centres I drove myself to all by myself, and I bought myself this plant as a well done. So yeah, it's got good memories, and it is just an all-round brilliant plant. And now, one that we've all been waiting for. The next category on our list today is the strongest plant. And it might not surprise you to learn that all of our strongest plants in the top 3 today actually belong to the same collective family group known as spurges. Back to you, Phil.
Yes, Claire, so 3 amazing euphorbias have made it to the top 3, and first up, hoping to go all the way, is the Euphorbia acrorensis. This one's native to the rocky regions of West Africa. This one really is a sturdy, heavy lifter, and I'm almost thinking it could carry all the other houseplants through the competition. As you can see by looking at the bottom here, as the plant grows and matures, the main stem of growth becomes much more woody and tree-like, and this is literally happening to support the weight of the growth above. Because as you can see, this one's an absolute giant. And then next to that first euphorbia, we have got this beautiful variegated Euphorbia ingens, which is native to Eritrea. Again, this is a very solid plant with actually a much thicker main body, but not quite as many branches. You can see on top here that it's putting out new growth by this north-facing window, so although it's not the fastest grower, it's consistent and very rewarding. But does a thicker body mean a stronger plant? That's the question. And last in line in this category is this strange and stocky looking euphorbia. It's the Euphorbia mauritania, and this one's native to South Africa. I must say, this has been the slowest out of all 3 plants to grow, but slow growing doesn't necessarily mean not as strong. You could in fact argue that its weight distribution and branching could offer quite the advantage here. Now, we obviously didn't want to test these plants' strengths too much for fear of breakage, but the audience vote seems unanimous.
So, in 3rd place in the strongest plant category, the bronze medal goes to the Euphorbia momentania. And it was a really tough call between these top 2, but the silver medal goes to the variegated Euphorbia ingens. And bigger doesn't always mean stronger, but it certainly does today with the Euphorbia acurensis taking gold. And that plant is in fact so heavy and so strong that I am not strong enough to carry it through here for this, so I'm going to put some clips on the screen. But this is a plant that I just feel immensely proud to own and grow. It's one that I've had since it was really quite small, probably smaller than the Euphorbia momentania is now, and it's sized up so quickly. It is a plant that really loves highlight, and if you give it lots of sun and more water than you might think, be wary when I say that. Obviously, it is a succulent and can be susceptible to overwatering, but more water than other succulents in my collection. Honestly, I've said it before, it grows like an epipremnum. It is so quick to grow, and I can't remember if I just said this or I just thought it, but that plant has got from the size of the Momentania to over the height of me. This plant is now like about that much taller than me and obviously branching hugely. It's got to that size in about 3 years, which I think is just insane. So yeah, if you're looking for something that behaves like an aroid but looks like a cactus, then this is your plant. And now, a bonus category added in at the last minute for all those speedy rooters out there. There were many that could have made it onto the list, but we've whittled it down to just 3. Take it away, Phil.
So the first nominee in the quickest to root category is this gorgeous, and I do mean gorgeous, begonia. This is the Begonia Sinbad, and this one's native to the mountains of Brazil. This one started off rooting in water and was transferred to this medium and way of growing at around a week and a half of being fresh cut. Although its root system wasn't hugely developed at the time, it's continued without drama and is now pushing out the most beautiful growth. All in all, this plant has gone from just small cuttings to a well-established beast of a begonia in just a matter of weeks. Bravo to that! And next up, we've got a very strange plant and another late entry into today's competition. It's a coleus, commonly known as inky fingers, and I think we can all see why. This one's native to northern Australia and is currently rooting in water. As you can see here, it's got a beautiful root system developing, which seems to have almost happened overnight. Note how it isn't just rooting from the node either, rather roots are forming directly from the cut stem. This was fresh cut less than 2 weeks ago, and just look at it go. And the final Speedy McSpeeders in this category when it comes to rooting is the Hoya Kalimantan, which you might have guessed from its name is native to Kalimantan, a part of the island of Borneo. This one's foliage hasn't changed much since it was potted, however it was planted as a fresh cut straight into this semi-hydro mix and appeared to root almost instantly. As I say though, although its rooting speed has been impressive, is root and no new growth enough to take the title today?
And the results are in, and sadly no, it's not enough for the Hoya Kalimantan, which comes 3rd, taking the bronze medal. And then in 2nd place is the Coleus Inky Fingers, which means the Begonia Sinbad takes the gold here. And oh my goodness, this is a plant that I'm currently absolutely obsessing over. And I know I said when I was talking about the Begonia Hurtella, I haven't usually been a particularly begonia focused grower. But this one and the Begonia Hurtella are, I think, responsible for kind of, yeah, as I said earlier, igniting that spark and making me want to get more into begonias, because I got a cutting of this one and I just couldn't stop looking at it. I was just slightly obsessed with it and I was like, I just know that I need more of this plant. And so I've got more cuttings and have found out that it is an incredibly fast grower, which makes me very happy because it just makes me think I'm going to be able to have a beautiful big plant in no time at all. Because already I only got this as cuttings maybe a month ago, a month and a half ago at the most. It's grown probably I want to say about 7 new leaves in my time of owning it. And as you can see, I am growing it without drainage. This is one that I've just got in a jar. I've got a layer of semi-hydro at the bottom, and then I've got a chunky substrate on top. And this actually isn't the best light to be showing you, but you can see some amazing roots have formed in there. And I've been trying this way of growing with quite a few plants recently, but this was my first time trialing it with a begonia, and I'm really happy this one has responded so well. It's just doing amazingly for me, and I'm just, yeah, blown away by it. I'm so excited by it, and I love it when I'm excited by a plant. So yeah, I will let you know how it gets on. And who knows, maybe in 4 years' time, it will be competing as a giant at the next Olympics. And now the next category is the best abseiler. And you might just think that this means the best hanging plant, but no, it doesn't. It means any plant with the ability to appear to cascade or grow downwards instead of up.
That's right, Claire, and kicking it off with a prime example is our first nominee, the Anthurium pallidiflorum. This one's native to the rainforests of Ecuador. This one's a very adaptable and easygoing anthurium that can be seen growing here next to a south-facing window with its foliage growing beautifully and hanging off that top shelf. This one's also incredibly fast to grow compared to other plants in the genus and capable of dramatically sizing up when given the right light and nutrient requirements. This is the only velvet leaf plant in this category, and with that striking white vein running down the centre, the pallidiflorum only hopes that it'll help win the hearts of the judges.
And then a very different kind of abseiler here. This one is the Hoya linearis, a soft textured Hoya native to Nepal. This is an epiphytic plant, meaning that in its natural habitat it would likely be found growing attached to other plants, shrubs and rocks, as opposed to growing directly from the ground. For this reason, it gathers its nutrients from both the air and its substrate, meaning that it loves humidity. That being said, it's a very adaptable plant and can absolutely learn to tolerate lower levels of humidity. What a winner.
Finally in this category, and one of my personal favourites, is the Hoya gracilis. This one is so easygoing and originates from Indonesia. This plant is so easy to care for and so adored. You can actually spot 2 of them growing here. Look, there's another blinking one. That's how great they are. It's another Hoya, and you guessed it, another epiphytic plant. It's also very drought tolerant and only needs watering every week or 2 when its soil is pretty much bone dry.
So it's been a tough call here, but we have made a decision. The plant taking bronze today in 3rd place is the Hoya gracilis. And again, such a tough call to make, but taking silver is the Hoya linearis. So that means our gold winner in the best abseiler category is the Anthurium pallidiflorum. And oh my goodness, I talk about this plant so much because it is truly the apple of my eye right now. It's another one that I had on my wish list for a really long time. And I have struggled slightly with certain types of anthuriums over the years. There's still some to this day that I just cannot get my head around and I find really challenging to grow. And because I'd never had this one before, I had no idea whether or not it might be kind of in that category of anthuriums. But honestly, it has been one of my easiest. And as I just said, the amount that it's sized up in such a short amount of time has just really blown me away. Like, I got this plant, I think at the end of January, and it only had 2 or 3 leaves, which, I mean, I know this isn't small, but it's the smallest it had. And when you compare that to the kind of growth it's giving me now, like, that is ridiculous. And this is just a plant that makes me so happy. And I feel like now that I've owned it and I've grown it, now that I've had it and grown it for January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, 8 months. I genuinely can't imagine my collection without it. And you know when you've got some plants that you really like, but you kind of, I don't know, they lift out quite easily. This, I just feel like, has become a staple in my collection. And yeah, I just adore it. I really adore it. So yeah, hopefully it continues to size up. I've no idea how big its leaves actually can get, but if it's doubled in size already, let's see what it looks like in another 8 months. And believe it or not, we are now at our final category for today's 2024 Houseplant Olympic Games. And the category is Most Striking Venation. And again, there's lots of plants that could have been included here, but we've just been looking for something with the most dramatic, eye-catching, beautiful venation possible. So walk us through the nominations, Phil.
Oh, and what a great category to end on, Claire. We've seen some real beauties lining up for this one, but of course there can only be one winner, and we're starting off with a very new addition. This is a recently imported plant that we've only just found out the true identity of. This is an Anthurium regal magnificum hybrid. This one's been living life so far in a propagation bin as she acclimates to her new environment. And like I said, it's early days, but my goodness, just look at that venation. I'm a huge fan of dramatic white venation on Anthuriums anyway, but as soon as I saw this one, she immediately went top of the list. This Anthurium is currently just growing in sphagnum moss and seems to be adjusting well to her new environment. A little bit of leaf spottage there, but in my opinion, nothing to worry about. Just something to keep an eye on. And another nominee in the running is this one, the Maranta Lemon Lime, and isn't he just a beauty? This one's native to the tropical rainforests of Brazil and is commonly known as a prayer plant. This one's leaves are almost picture perfect. You can see the spot it's growing in here offers pretty good light, but nothing direct. The leaves of this plant can be seen to visibly open during the day to lap up all the light and then fold themselves back up again in the evening. It's a relatively hardy prayer plant compared to others in its family, however it does require its soil to remain pretty evenly moist, so perhaps a little higher maintenance than some others we've seen today. And finally, an all-time favourite, the Alocasia mitchellitziana, and this one originates from the island of Luzon in the Philippines. Similarly to the Regal hybrid, this one's got beautiful dark velvety leaves with striking white venation and has a fairly consistent growth pattern. Here's the spot it's growing in and it's chasing the light like crazy. Just look at that. Oh, this is going to be a very tough decision. But what do we reckon, judges?
You're right, Phil, this really is such a tough call to make. But after careful consideration and deliberation with Yoli, we have reached a decision. Are we ready? So the final bronze medal for today is going to the Anthurium regal magnificum hybrid. And in second place taking the silver medal is the Maranta lemon lime, which means the plant taking gold today with the most striking venation is the Alocasia mitchellitziana. And this is another one that is just a firm favourite in my collection and I honestly cannot imagine not owning. I've said it before, but the first time I remember seeing this plant, I genuinely thought it was like a cartoon plant. I think I saw it in the background of someone else's video or in a photo or something, and it was almost too two-dimensional for me to believe that it was real. So when I first saw one in real life, I was like, oh my God, I've just got to have it. And this is actually made up of corms that I've propagated from my mother plant, which has now been passed along. I've had so many over the years, but this one's growing really, really beautifully for me. It's one that I'm growing in semi-hydro, and I've said it before in videos, but I've transferred pretty much all of my alocasias into semi-hydroponics now, and for me that has been like an absolute game changer. They are now pretty easy plants for me to grow, whereas before I would have issues from time to time. The only thing that has been a slight issue from time to time with this plant is pests, and this one is very susceptible to spider mites, so just making sure to keep an eye on it and do regular pest checks is a very good idea. But yeah, that concludes our 2024 Houseplant Olympic Games. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Honestly, I have had so much fun making it. Of course, thank you so much to Yoli and thank you so much to Phil as well. And if you have enjoyed it, firstly, comment down below what your winners from your collection would be in each category, because genuinely I would be so interested to know. Let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.